Right, today we've got a story for you that is, wow. It's about what seemed like a totally routine doctor's visit that turned into a life or death situation. It's a powerful story about intuition, persistence, and a super close call that has a really critical lesson for all of us.
So let's just dive right in. Those are the words of Rochelle Denise Morisseau. And as you're going to find out, her life was pretty much hanging by a thread. But she was saved because her doctor listened to a feeling, not just her symptoms, and absolutely refused to let it go.
So let's set the scene. The story gets started one morning in October. It's 4 a.m., and Rochelle is jolted awake about a bunch of symptoms that were just impossible to ignore. Now, when you look at these symptoms on a slide, they're textbook, right? Chest tightness, pain shooting down the left arm, nausea, hard to breathe. But in that moment, her first reaction wasn't to call 911. Nope, it was to try and find some other explanation. And isn't that just so relatable? I mean, how many of us have done that? We push through discomfort, especially when we're used to taking care of everybody else. Even though her body was basically screaming that something was very wrong, Rochelle's mind started trying to rationalize it all away. Could it be anxiety? Or, hey, maybe I just slept in a funny position. She just tried to dismiss it. So a few days go by, and the story picks up again. Rochelle goes to see her primary care physician, a guy named Dr. Mike, who she's known for years. Now, the appointment was actually supposed to be for a nagging back problem, something totally unrelated. So they're just chatting during the exam, and Rochelle kind of casually brings up that whole 4 a.m. thing. But as she's describing it, Dr. Mike picks up on something way more alarming than the symptoms themselves. He saw her fear. And that one single emotional cue, it completely changed the entire direction of the visit. And here's the kicker. By the time she was actually sitting there in his office, she felt perfectly fine. The pain was gone, the nausea had passed. She was all ready to just write the whole thing off, and she was even kind of nudging her doctor to do the same. But Dr. Mike's gut was telling him something else. His intuition was practically screaming. He saw past her trying to brush it off, and he recognized real fear in a patient he knew really well. So he insisted on an EKG right then and there. It showed some, non-specific changes. Not exactly a smoking gun, but it was enough to confirm his gut feeling and to push for an urgent cardiac consult, even when Rochelle was pushing back. Getting that consult, though, that took even more persistence. At first, Rochelle booked an appointment for months out, which could have been a fatal mistake. Dr. Mike actually had to personally text a cardiologist friend of his just to get her seen immediately. And this slide, man, this just shows you why these things can be so incredibly hard to diagnose. The first tests weren't clear at all. In fact, she passed her stress test, a result that could have so easily given everyone a false sense of security. It wasn't until the next test, the echocardiogram, that they finally had that aha moment. Okay, so the echocardiogram found something called moderate basal inferior hypokinesis. I know, it's a total mouthful, right? But what that technical term basically means is that a specific part of her heart muscle just wasn't moving the way it was supposed to. And the way Rochelle describes it makes it so clear. The cardiologist could see it right there on the screen. The top part of her heart was pumping away, working hard, but the bottom part, it was sluggish, weak. It was the very first undeniable visual proof that something was seriously wrong. And with that undeniable evidence, the cardiologist's conclusion was blunt, and it was immediate. The mystery of her 4 a.m. scare was solved. She had, in fact, had a heart attack. Now they just needed to find out why. So that final test, a CTA scan, was about to reveal just how incredibly close to death Rochelle had actually been. The scan showed a blockage of over 90% in her right coronary artery. 90%. I mean, that means only the tiniest little trickle of blood was getting through to a major part of her heart muscle. It's just staggering. So to be super clear, this is the literal definition of a heart attack. Your heart is a muscle, and just like any other muscle, it needs its own constant supply of blood. When that supply gets cut off by a blockage like this one, the muscle tissue starts to die. You are literally in a race against the clock. And it was only then, as she was being prepped for the procedure to put in a stent and open up that artery, that the full weight of this situation finally hit her. The close call, the whole series of events that led her to that table, it all just sank in. She was so lucky to be alive. But Rochelle's journey of survival quickly turned into a mission of advocacy, and it was all fueled by a pretty startling realization she had during her recovery.
On her first day of cardiac rehab, Rochelle looks around the room and sees a bunch of men, and she's the only woman there. When she asked a nurse why, the answer she got was just sobering. It's not that men have more heart attacks, it's that women are so often conditioned to put everyone else first.
And this really gets to the core of the issue. For decades, that classic description of a heart attack, the whole elephant sitting on your chest thing, was based almost entirely on what men experience. But women often present very differently, with symptoms like nausea, extreme fatigue, or jaw pain, things that are much easier to dismiss as something else.
This quote from Rochelle just says it all, doesn't it? Her story is this powerful reminder of two things: how important it is to have a doctor who truly listens, not just to your words, but to your fear, and the absolute necessity of being your own biggest health advocate, even when you think you feel fine.
And so Rochelle's incredible experience leaves all of us with a question we really need to ask ourselves. We are all so busy taking care of our jobs, our families, everybody else, but are we truly honestly listening to our own bodies? Because as Rochelle learned the hard way, you just can't take care of anyone else if you don't first take care of yourself.